Flo is here as well. Of course, Brexit is the big story in the international papers as well, isn't it, really, Flo? This historic letter signing.
Let's take a look at some of the front pages in the UK. All of them practically are talking about this. I pulled out just a selection. Let's start with the newspaper pretty succinct here. The Brexit begins, and you can see that cutout of the UK there as it gets ready to leave the European Union. Now, there's a wide range of emotions in the British papers. Pro-EU papers, as you can imagine, are quite concerned over this uncertainty that you were just talking about. Let's take a look here at The Guardian. Britain steps into the unknown, and you can see this puzzle of Europe, and the bit representing Britain there has already been taken out. It's there in the bottom. A very different tone in pro-Brexit papers, of course, quite jubilant today. Let's take a look at the Daily Mail. Freedom! You can see Theresa May there signing that historic letter. A little bit more sober if we take a look at the Times. They're talking about how the eyes of history are watching, and that photo, that very iconic photo that we've seen on so many front pages today, pretty much guaranteed to go down in history, that photo.
I mean, the big word does seem to be uncertainty today, doesn't it, Flo? And we've got 2 years in negotiation now, and nobody seems to really know where this is going to go. It's just uncertain.
It's completely uncertain. And what's interesting is if you look at the wording of a lot of editorials today in the British papers, they're really talking about it as if it's a divorce. Let's take a look here at The Guardian. Well, that's the front page. But in their editorial, the Guardian is quite concerned about the kids, I guess you could say. EU nationals, British nationals, what's going to happen to them? That's a major source of uncertainty. And The Guardian says that we really need to start by protecting EU nationals. It's morally and politically repugnant to try and bargain over the future of people who have enriched our lives. So they're worried about the kids. Other papers, though, are a little bit more excited about this divorce, or at least saying that this divorce is going to be mutually beneficial. If we take a look at the conservative magazine, The Spectator, very much a pro-Brexit paper, you can see how they're saying, actually, this could benefit both the EU and Britain if they play their cards right. Essentially, both sides need to go home and say that they won. And this article ends by saying, negotiations succeed when both sides can claim a victory.
Difficult position for Theresa May there, isn't it, though? Cartoonists, as we saw there, are having a real field day, aren't they?
They sure are. And once again, I just pulled out a selection. Let's start with The Times. This is Peter Brooks drawing some inspiration from Toulouse-Lautrec and the Folie Bergère, except for it's Le Folie Brexit. And you can see Theresa May there leading the way, canning off a cliff there. Now, Theresa May is depicted as Wile E. Coyote in this cartoon in The Independent. You can see painting a light at the end of the tunnel, of course. We know how those stunts tend to end up for Wile E. Coyote. Maybe not going to end well, according to this cartoon. I also pulled out a cartoon in China Daily today, which points out the irony of the timing here. Theresa May's letter comes just a few days after the European Union celebrated the 60th anniversary of the Treaty of Rome, which paved the way to the EU as we know it. And so you can see these little EU stars here signing that Declaration of Rome, while there's one little star, of course, with the British hat there, drinking a cup of tea and an umbrella, if you didn't know it was a British star, that's being a little lazy and not really doing its bit.
That's all I do, drink tea and carry umbrellas. European papers, how are they reacting, Flo?
It's really interesting. It is a big story in many European papers. El País, the Spanish paper, actually asked its readers how they feel. There's a poll today. Are you happy that Britain's leaving the EU, or are you sad? And actually participated in this poll. Over 66% of people said they're very sad and wish that Britain would stay. Le Soir, the Belgian paper, also is focusing on this. You can see their front page here. Theresa May is signing the end of the European Union as we know it with 28 members. It's a real slap in the face, says Le Soir in its editorial, and there fears that there could be a domino effect, that this exit could lead to other exits. To try and avoid that domino effect, we have to recognize that we have failed as the EU, and we have to rebuild reasons to believe in Europe and democracy.
Okay, let's move on to something completely different now. In the States, papers reacting to Donald Trump's decision to revoke Obama's climate change rules and declare what he said an end to a war on coal.
You got a sneak peek at that cartoon I was going to show you. This is Tom Tolles for the Washington Post. It's a pretty clever cartoon. You can see this reporter here. Everyone's waiting to see who Trump will blame and punish for his big health care defeat, Well, it's the climate, according to this cartoon. The Earth must die. Now, that might be a little extreme, but a lot of papers are very concerned by this executive order. Let's take a look at the editorial in the New York Times today that's saying that this actually it's a risk for the planet. It's a risk for future generations. It's dismaying for several reasons, according to the New York Times. It goes against all rock-solid scientific evidence, and it flies in the face of widespread public support for environmental protection.
Quick word on Ivory Coast. Former First Lady Simone Gbagbo being acquitted of crimes against humanity. Quite a turnaround, this.
It really is. It wasn't expected to go that way. You can read about it in Lup's, more about the case in general. So she was once dubbed Ivory Coast's Iron Lady. She was on trial for alleged crimes against humanity during the 2010-2011 post-election chaos, I guess you could say. And it was a stunning verdict. The prosecution had actually sought jail for life, essentially. What happened? Well, you can read more about it in the Jelly, which is a Ghanaian paper which has been focusing on this case. Essentially, they're wondering, is this a political concession or is it a slap in the face for the current Ivorian authorities? Well, it's a little bit of both because she is already serving a 20-year sentence. So it's a little bit of a concession and it's a little bit of a slap on the wrist for Ivorian authorities. But her acquittal is logical. But let's end with a story that's completely different and I thought quite funny. It really made my day, I must say. It's a word about Iceland, which is experiencing a record-breaking baby boom. What happened 9 months ago? Well, there was that humiliating defeat. Well, they defeated England in the Euro 2016, so obviously they celebrated in style.
Well done, Iceland. Thank you, Flo. More news coming up just very shortly. Stay with us.